Hello, welcome back to Dreamseed VR. I'm your host Sarah Finn, and tonight's episode is episode 7, Analogue. So to begin with, there is always exciting news in the various fields of technology, virtual reality, psychedelics, and the arts. To begin with, we are going to jump into my favorite story in the tech field this week. It seems as though researchers from Russian corporation Neurobotics and the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology have found a way to visualize a person's brain activity as actual images, mimicking what they observe in real time. Now, this is really exciting stuff. I've taken a look at the video, which I will put a link in the description so you can see it for yourself. But it's actually quite impressive for this early in the technology's development. It's kind of radical stuff. It's sort of along the lines of what we have talked about in previous episodes with fictional works like Paprika. And it seems as though you can recognize people's faces, vague shapes of patterns, and other visual phenomenon. It reminds me of some research I saw a number of years ago where similar technology was being implemented on animals. And this was also Russian research, if I recall properly. And they were doing these experiments with cats. And the most interesting artifact for me personally, checking out this work, was when you looked at the feed of visual information that they were getting from the cat's visual cortex that was reconstructed as a digital image. When the cat looked at the face of the scientist, it catmorphized the face, much in the same way when human beings look at animals or other objects, we anthropomorphize things. Well, this cat was felinomorphizing the face of the scientist. His hair, the scientist's hair, even had little peaks, that sort of imitated cat ears, and the proportions of his face seemed cat-like, and the eyes looked sort of large. It has a lot of implications on the nature of the subjective interpretation of brain signals and data coming in to the senses and the nervous system. But if you're interested in that, check out the link below, as well as the article which has been shared recently in our Dreamseed Facebook group. Also in tech news, we do have a spot of unfortunate events unfolding. It looks like the Mobile World Conference, which was set to take place in late February in Barcelona, Spain, has had to be canceled as a result of concerns related to the ongoing coronavirus. Honestly, this is a wise move, even though this conference has been going on for a number of years and it is very widely known and respected in the industry. It is better to keep everybody safe and to prevent the spread. Also, in extraordinary tech news, it seems that artificial neurons, which could replace lost brain cells in Alzheimer's, are being developed by scientists. It looks like teams at the University of Bath and a team of international collaborators are working on a silicon chip to mimic the responses of biological neurons when triggered by the nervous system. Researchers have been trying to create an artificial brain and brain cells for decades, but have struggled because of the way neurons respond to signals is often complex and unpredictable. These artificial neurons hypothetically could be implanted in the brain to repair the damage caused by Alzheimer's and other neurological diseases. On a personal hypothetical note, a number of years ago at the Women's Visionary Congress, I had an interesting conversation with Bruce Dahmer, who is an incredible mind. He's a cool intelligentsia in the class of, T. Ferry or Terrence McKenna, just a very cool psychedelic deep field mind. And he told me that he was having conversations years ago with some people he was working with, I think at NASA. I could be wrong about that. But he mentioned that the way it looks right now, and that was back in 2013, that it seemed unrealistic and irrational to try to expect artificial brains to be made out of computer chips, and that it was much more applicable and probable to create artificial brains by engineering artificial neurons, that the computing capacity of neurons will always outstrip the capacity of circuitry, but it's just a matter of how you engineer them and compact them and organize them. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that was what we talked about, and is actually part of one of the conversations that inspired my tattoo. He's wearing a cool shirt with a hand with an eye on it. Like, And I was like, that's cool. I want one of those on my hand. So shortly after, I tattooed this on my hand. In psychedelic news, we have some exciting developments regarding various companies planning to go public in 2020. It looks like Mind Medicine, as well as other psychedelic companies, are going forward with becoming public entities working in the medicinal psychedelic therapy fields. And here is a quote from Mind Medicine regarding that. Our ambition is to be one of the first publicly listed neuropharmacological companies developing psychedelic medicines. Good stuff. In art news, there is an exciting new venue that has just opened up in San Francisco over the past 2 weeks. Uncanny Valley is a new cyberpunk community organization. With dystopian ambiance, this space is designed to inspire creativity. Come check out their gallery, library, and working space. If you're interested in getting notifications about upcoming events, be sure to check them out at Facebook, where they are at Uncanny Valley SF, as well as their Discord server. Also in art news, there was a very exciting development that I myself do not do a particularly good job of understanding, but I know that it will be significant to my friends and viewers who are musicians. It looks like MIDI 2.0 specs have been confirmed, and it is being hailed as the biggest advance in music technology in decades. In virtual reality news, it looks like Steam is reporting the biggest ever jump in the user base happened just this past month. Now, contrary to what you might think, there was a lot of adoption that happened in December. Granted, it was the holidays, but it was even outweighed by the recent jump we saw this past month. How exciting is that? We have a lot of new adopters. The future is coming. Now that we've gone through the news, let us move on to some other fun stuff. So this week I briefly wanted to touch on a couple definitions that I feel like easily get lost in time regarding our steady march into the future. And I wanted to break down for you briefly the word analog. Now, the dictionary defines analog as an adjective relating to the use of signals or information represented by a continuous variable physical quality such as spatial position, voltage, etc. Analog signals. Now, there's also an interesting definition of the word analog that is relevant to us because of its application in psychedelic culture. We often refer to drugs that are synthesized or close relatives of other psychedelics as analogs. For example, we have two analogs, NN-DMT and 5-MeO-DMT, as well as Foxy and Moxie, which if I believe is 5-MeO-DIPT, something like that. So here's a cool example of use from the dictionary. An interior analog of the exterior world. That's highly relevant to what we do in virtual reality, isn't it? Now, what is the difference between analog and digital? This is significant. Digital signals must have a finite set of possible values. The number of values in the set can be anywhere between 2 and a very large number. That's not infinity. That's the big difference between analog and digital waves. Analog waves are smooth and continuous, whereas digital waves are steeping, square, and discrete. All you producers, musically, will know what I mean by square waves. Now, why in particular did I want to drag this definition out from the dusty part of the dictionary? Well, as it turns out, I recently became really fascinated with the origins of some of my favorite soundtracks in cyberpunk culture, in particular the Terminator film soundtracks, and that would be Terminator 1 and 2. These soundtracks were composed by the great Brad Fiedel. Cool guy, and he also featured a violinist. Put their name down here. And I recently saw some documentaries on YouTube by a YouTuber named Alex Ball, who goes into great detail about the synthesizers used. Now, I was particularly fascinated with the orchestral libraries that were used as samples in Terminator 2, and the nature in which they used these samples, which are some of the first full orchestral samples captured in a digital library that were modulated to create the eerie and mechanical aesthetic of the Terminator 2 soundtrack. I'll be putting a description in the link below of Alex Ball's YouTube video. It's incredibly well done, very detailed, and he cites a lot of interesting information regarding the synthesizers that were used in the film. I think that there's something particularly special about the symbolic representation of things in the real world as they get represented in digital forms. So essentially the transformation of things that are analog symbols into digital symbols. We went from magnetic tape to laser discs to beta tapes to VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, and now digital formats such as MP4 and streaming media. Now, along the way, there are various ups and downs regarding video quality, and there's even an interesting phenomenon called the soap opera effect, where the frame rate itself has had a distorting effect on our appreciation for the cinematic quality of a piece. I'll also be putting a link to a couple descriptions of what the soap opera effect is like. Moving on to some of our other recommendations, I wanted to share with you a book called Xenolinguistics by Diana Reed Slattery. Are language and consciousness co-evolving? Can psychedelic experience cast light on this topic? In the Western world, we stand at the dawn of the psychedelic age with advances in neuroscience and a proliferation of new psychoactive substances, both legal and illegal. This is an incredible work, and the author's 11-year adventure of psychonautic exploration and scholarly research is waiting for you inside. This book is incredible. It is a personal favorite of mine. I love Diana's work. She is an incredible mind, and she has put so much passion and academic rigor into the work. I feel like this is a gift to humanity. Straight up, it's a gift to humanity. I hope you check it out. Xenolinguistics, Psychedelics, Language, and the Evolution of Consciousness. Speaking of amazing hyperdimensional beings and xenolinguistics, this week I am excited to showcase the work of an artist named Tim Lukowiak. Tim's work fascinated me a number of years ago when I first came across it, and I was recently reminded of how much I love it and how I was inspired to share it with you. Tim's work blew my mind. It's easily some of my favorite. It has a beautiful, intricate pop art, cartoony quality while depicting some of the most detailed and dazzling hyperdimensional creatures I've ever seen. Amazing hybrids of biological forms, as well as beautiful goddesses and cyberdelic looking beings. His work is colorful and exciting and really engaging. I just want to transform into one of his characters and float away into a gaseous nebula forever. Tim's work can be found at his website, timlukowiak.com. And do yourself a favor, really, just do yourself a favor. It's amazing. I'm going to be sharing some of these works on the Dreamseed website as well, so you can see them up close and check out your humble editor's favorite picks. Next week, we will be bringing you an in-depth special review list by one of our friends at Dreamseed on Facebook, Mustafa Ansari. So be sure to check out next week's episode. And if you have any interesting suggestions for VR applications and games that you were inspired by, or you think the rest of us here at Dreamseed VR would appreciate, be sure to include them in the comments below. Also be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. Thank you for helping me grow this little dream seed.